last majlis of Ayyam-e-Azam, which marks the shahadat of our 11th Imam, Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salatu wassalam.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala.
We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that with the tawfiqat that He bestowed upon us throughout these Ayyam-e-Azam, that we're able to benefit from these majalis that we participated in 2.5 months. And also, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our ibadat in the form of this majlis azad that we performed for over 2 months. While it might be the end of Ayyam-e-Azad, although it's not a hadith, but it's a maqula, kullu yawmin ashura wa kullu ardin, that every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala. Of course, it does not undermine the superior status that Karbala has by comparing it with other lands. But it gives us incentive that no matter where you are, that land could be converted into Karbala when you do the zikr of Muhammadu ala Muhammad. And similarly, when the other part of the maqula mentions the kullu yawmin ashura, of course, not every day is compared to the day of Ashura. Ashura, I have said it before, those of you who've been regular in these majalis or have come to masjid often, that Yawm Ashur was no less than Yawm Mahshar. We don't know how Yawm Mahshar will be. We've heard what Yawm Mahshar will be like, but Yawm Ashur is no less than Yawm Mahshar. Yawm Mahshar is when a person will be running away from their own brothers, from their own sisters, from their own mothers, from their own fathers. Yawm Mahshar is when people will be on their own, worrying about their own selves. That, oh Allah, where is the mafar? Where will I find peace and comfort? But Yawm Mahshar is also the day when your arkan or the amal that you perform and the book is given to you, and you're given nama amal as to which direction you will be sent. Yawm Ashur is similar. You see that there are two parties that are spending. One is Hizb Hussein and the other is Hizb Yazid. While Hussein raises the banner and the slogan, there are many in Hizb Yazid that make this walk on the day of Ashur, on the night of Ashur, in order to join Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. So that's like how Yawm Mahshar is, Yawm Ashur could be compared to that as well. With that said, I will not be too long. I recited this first ayat from Surah Ankabut for you, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with huruf muqatta'at. He says, Alif Lam Mim, أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. Do people think, after Alif Lam Mim, do people think that they will be left alone and they will not be tested merely when they say that we have brought Iman? Simply because we have brought Iman, we will not be tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is a mistake on their behalf. No more surely, most definitely, now that you have brought Iman, it's a very good chance that you will be put to test. Before, maybe you may not have been tested, but now for sure, you will be put to test. That's why Molana Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, in Nahjul Balagha, he says that whoever loves us, man ahabbana falyasta'id, that whoever loves us, they should prepare themselves for what? Lil bala'i jilbaba. فَلْيَسْتَعِدْ جِلْبَابًا, that they should go ahead and prepare themselves to be engulfed into what? Into bala and musibah. That's what the price of muhabbat Ahl-e-Bait is. Now you wonder why Islam has spread from left to right, to east to west, in the 61st year after Hijrah, and there were only 72 marching to Karbala. They could be the misdaq of this hadith of Imam. It says that whoever loves us, فَلْيَسْتَعِدْ, they should get ready, prepare themselves. Jilbaban. For what? For bala. Indeed, bala and tribulation and trial will come toward you. Also, in this ayat, Allah says, "Hum la yuftanun." They think, they ponder, as if they will never be tested. Our seventh Imam was asked about this ayat as to what the word yuftinu means. Imam responded by saying, not giving the translation of this word yuftinu. Imam said, yuftinu dhahab wa yukhlisuhu. You know how gold is put under heat and fire and then it is purified? He said, mu'min is the same way. The way the more you purify and the more heat you provide to this gold, it gets clearer and it gets more expensive. The carats start increasing. You give a little bit of heat, it's 14 carats. You give a little bit more heat, it's 18 carats. You give a little bit more heat, it's 22 carats. You give maximum amount of heat, it becomes 24 carats. It's a mu'min is the same way. The more you're tested, the more golden you become. The more sunahari you become. The more sharpened you are. Therefore, don't be afraid. If the bala and the musibat come in your direction, embrace them wholeheartedly, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, planned that for you. It's not something which is spontaneous that is happening to you. Today, we also commemorate the shahadat of an important imam of ours. That imam whose life is distinctively different than the other ai*imah. In the times of other ai*imah, there were challenges. There were challenges in a sense that there were wars, there were battles, there were persecutions, there were prisons. All of that was happening. All of our imams are either masmoom or mafqood. They're all martyred. But the difference between this imam and the other imams is what? This imam of ours has a responsibility toward the leader of the Muslim ummah until the day of judgment. Right? The 12th imam, his son, the Hujjat of Allah, has to be protected. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can provide means of protection. The way He provides means of protection to Quran, when He says, "Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun." He can similarly provide protection to Imam Zamana as well. But it is the duty of our 11th Imam that he has to perform that. Now while I recited that ayat of "Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra," Quran is something which should be part and parcel of our lives, daily lives. Especially the kids sitting over here. You don't have any excuse why you shouldn't recite at least 5 to 10 ayat of Quran on a daily basis. Oh, it's difficult to do wudu. Don't do wudu. You have phones and gadgets, you have Quran loaded on it, you don't need wudu for that. You need wudu to touch the script of Quran. But when you're touching the screen of your gadget, you don't have to have wudu. No, it's still good to go ahead and do wudu. But if that's the excuse keeping you from reading Quran, then forget about it. Go ahead and read it. Read at least 5 ayat on daily basis, and this is where you develop connection with your imam. And then give this as a hadiyah and present to the imam of your time. When you give it as a hadiyah and a gift to the imam of your time, no, it becomes his possession. Follow. When you give your hadiyah, when you give someone a present, that thing left your hand and went into the hand of the second person. Now it becomes their possession. When it's their possession, it's no longer your possession. When you read 5 to 10 ayat and give this as a hadiyah to imam of your time, it becomes his possession. When it's his possession, it becomes his amal. When it becomes his amal, it is maqbool in the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know how you just simply develop this connection with Imam of your time? That's the connection that is needed. Now I wanted to mention one aspect just quickly, because this is also Isa the Sawab Majlis for marhoom Molana Syed Talmeez Rizvi, who of course was known in this community since 1984. And many of you knew him very personally, you had attachment and whatnot. That one of the things that is recommended that you can do as a leaving behind legacy is ilmin yuntafi'u bihi. I don't read the entire hadith of Rasul which says, إِذَا مَاتَ إِبْنُ آدَمَ, when a person leaves this world, انقطع عمله إلا عن ثلاث. His actions are cut off except three things, right? What are the three things? وَلَدٍ صَالِحٍ يَدْعُو لَهُ, obedient child who prays for him. That probably is not true in my case. Number two, صَدَقَةٍ جَارِيَةٍ. And then thirdly, ilmin yuntafi'u bihi, knowledge which is beneficial for the people. One of the things that he did leave behind is the tarjuma of Quran. Many of you who speak and read Arabic, you have the tarjuma by Molana. Usually people don't read the muqaddamah. We just go right to the book. You want to read Quran, you go right to the book. In the muqaddamah, he writes this. He says, when I was doing the tarjuma of Quran, someone came up to me and said, Molana, why there's a need of tarjuma in Urdu? There's already very good tarajim, mawjood, Maqbul Hussain, Farman Ali, and Allama Zishan, Mohsin Najfi, and others that are there. There's so many Urdu tarjuma that have been done. Why do you need to do another Urdu tarjuma? How beneficial would this be? Have the other people not done this tarjuma already, that you're doing the tarjuma of Quran again? Instead of answering to that person, Molana included it to the muqaddamah, the response, because many people might ask this question. And I'd like to share this tonight here with you. He said this. He said there's actually a need of the tarjuma of Quran every 50 years.
Subhanallah.
Every 50 years, someone should do the translation of Quran. The Arabs don't need the translation, that's their language. But you and I, we need tarjuma. In fact, the Arabs need the tashri', because the words of Quran may not be mafhum to them, so they need further elaboration of some of the words. But for you and I, non-Arabs, what do we need? We need translation. He said there's already translation mawjood. Yeah, the translation was 40 years ago, 50 years ago. He said every 50 years do the translation of Quran. Why? He said, you know the progress human mind makes in 50 years? As humans are progressing every 50 years, imagine, there are many people that I see right now sitting in front of me, they're, mashallah, more than 50. In fact, they were old enough to know what was going on 50 years ago. 50 years ago was not too far away, it was only 1973. So many of you were teenagers in your 20s and whatnot. You know, vividly remember what was happening in 1973. Where was the human progress in 1973? Technologically, we were very advanced, but nothing compared to what we are today. So in 50 years, you see how much progression has happened? That progression, now with that, if you read Quran, your understanding of Quran will be much different. And then he gave an example. He said, Mullah Faiz Kashani, whose tafsir he also translated Quran 300 years ago. Mullah Faiz Kashani lived 300 years ago. When he came to this ayat, وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرٍ يَرَى وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَى. He translated it. He did the tashri' of it. For you and I, the translation is what? Whoever does an atom worth of good will see it. Whoever does an atom worth of evil will see it. 300 years ago, there's no concept of seeing things. How will Allah show? They don't know. There are no TVs. There are no DVRs. There are no camcorders. There are no cameras. Those things didn't exist 300 years ago. But Mutarjim translated it, not knowing what Allah means over here, how He will show it to us, we don't know. Come 300 years later, now when you read this ayah, you have a different perspective.
Subhanallah.
Allah will not only show us our good and bad, but He will show us in a big screen that we can't even imagine, in the quality that you and I cannot even fathom.
Subhanallah.
The HD, the UHD, the OLED, and whatever qualities are out there now, 4K, 10K, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have the quality as sharp as it is, from variety of angles, not just from one angle. You know, this angle is fixed on me right here. There are a couple of cameras, but they'll only show you 2 views of Molana. You know, the cameras that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has will show you from every single angle. There's no denial that you've done this good deed or you've done this bad deed. It will be shown to you from all different angles, and that is the quality of the camera that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. And now you understand this ayat because you have progressed enough to understand this. Salat Bidi Muhammad. So Imam, 11th Imam, his wiladat is in the year 232, and his shahadat is in the year 260. 28 years. 28 years. You imagine our children, usually by the age of 28, are thinking about getting married. Although I'd say they should get married before that, but 28 they're thinking about. They've done their studies, now they've gotten a job, they're working and they're making enough money, now they can support and whatnot, so they should get married. 28 years is all the life of Imam. 17 out of these 28 Imam spends in Surra Man Ra'a, which is today known as Samarra. The original name was Surra Man Ra'a. What does that mean? Sur mean joyful or excited. Man Ra'a, whoever saw it. That city was a city, whoever saw it became excited. By looking at that place, looking at that city, you became joyful. Surra Man Ra'a. Over the years, when the word was repeated, it became what? Samarra. That's the etymology of the name Samarra. Imam spent 17 years. It's a garrison town, right? There are military bases over there. That's why it's called, Imam got the title Askari. And the 2 Imams that are buried there are called Askariyain. So imagine living in a military compound for that long of a time. How difficult the life would be. And with that challenge, Imam ﷺ has to protect the hujjat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make sure that he is unscathed and he has not been hurt and he's protected completely from the evil eye that exists. In fact, many people started doubting whether Imam has an heir or not. Because Imam Zamana's wiladat is in the year 255. 11th Imam Shahadas is in the year 260. Imam Zamana is only 5 years old. 11th Imam declares and shows that my son has been born. People were doubting, there will not be any. It's similar to the story of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. That Fir'aun of the time has realized that there will be a baby born this year who will topple my government. So what does Fir'aun order? Kill all the kids. Now if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to protect a particular child, there's nothing that Fir'aun can do. The best way to protect Hazrat Musa was what? To raise Hazrat Musa in the house of Fir'aun. Look at the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He needs to protect Hazrat Musa from Fir'aun. Where does he raise him? He raises him right there in the house of Fir'aun. Because he realizes that Fir'aun does not have a child. And Fir'aun and his wife are longing for a child. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivers a child to them at their doorstep. And thus, he raises the child. That's the reason Fir'aun, when Hazrat Musa returns back, brags about her saying, Alam nurabbika, did I not raise you when you were a child? He's taking pride in it, and he's actually bragging about it, saying, was I not rearing you and nurturing you when you were a young kid? Now you turn back and come back and you're now challenging me? Similar is the story of our 12th Imam. 11th Imam has to do and apply a mechanism where he can protect this baby so that nobody touches him. Of course, the Abbasi rulers at that time are getting weaker. Mu'tamid, who is responsible for giving poison to 11th Imam, he's not as strong as his predecessors, previous rulers. They were stronger. He's not as strong. But nonetheless, he's afraid what this Imam is capable of doing. 28 years of sin, and he's afraid of Imam. What I wanted to share in the last 15-20 minutes that I want to take from your time, that's something that we can take away from the words and the kalam and the wisdom of 11th Imam. Because history is important. You can Google the history. But the words of wisdom that Imam has left, when you walk away, you'll say, well, today I heard this one hadith from our 11th Imam, and I think I'm going to go ahead and apply that hadith in my life. Let's see if you're ready with us now. Imam said, your life purpose should be to benefit others. Islam is not a religion which is only self-conscious, that you worry about yourself, you worry about your own ordeal, you worry about your own kids and children, you worry about your own house. Islam is a religion which wants you to worry about others as well. In fact, benefiting others as well. So in this regard, Imam has a hadith. He says what? He says, خَصْلَتَانْ لَيْسَ فَوْقَهُمَا. There are two traits, khasail. There's nothing that can top them. إِلَّا لَيْسَ فَوْقَهُمَا شَيْءٌ. There's nothing that can top these two khasail. What are these two? Al-Imanu billahi wa naf'ul akhwan. There are two khisal that nothing can top these two khisal. Meaning they're at the top. Number one, al-imanu billah. Belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was the easy one. Number two, naf'ul akhwan. Benefiting your friends and family members. Akhwan, your brothers. Brothers in faith, brothers in humanity. They should be benefiting from you. So I know that if I can just take care of myself and worry about my own things. No, deen is not a deen of self-centered. Rather, deen is the deen which involves people around you. When Imam said, Imanu billah, nothing is above Iman. Then if nothing is above Iman, then how you not ponder over the words of Rasulullah when Amirul Mu'mineen was leaving, going to face Amr ibn Abd Wud, and Imam Rasulullah said, Baraz al-imanu kullihi alal kufri kullihi. That today the entire Iman is going and moving toward the entire kufr. Iman, there's nothing on top of Iman. Rasulullah compares Ali to be kulle Iman.